Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Beyond Diversification, where we explore strategies that behind Sri Lanka's most successful organizations. I'm Amaya, and today we'll take a strategic journey through one of the country's largest and most influential conglomerates, Hayley's PLC. For more than 145 years, Hayley's has evolved from a small trading company into a diversified multinational group operating across 14 business sectors with a presence in global markets. But what makes Hayley's truly remarkable isn't just its size, it's how the company continues to create competitive advantage through strategic thinking, innovation, sustainability, and disciplined execution. In today's episode, we'll analyze Hayley's using the strategic management concepts. So, without further ado, let's begin our strategic review of Hayley's PLC. So, before we get into strategy itself, I want to ground us in scale because the numbers here genuinely surprised me. Haley's group generated revenue of 585 billion this year with a profit before tax 38 billion built on the work of 38,746 employees, and it isn't just a large, it's structurally diverse. 14 separate industry sectors from hand protection gloves to agriculture, from logistics to leisure, spread across 203 individual companies. But the figure that actually stopped me mid-read was this: 5% of Sri Lanka's entire export economy moves through this one group. That's not just a company we are studying today, it's close to being a piece of national economic infrastructures, and that scale changes the question we should be asking. A business this size can't really run one strategy, it has to run something closer to a portfolio of strategies. Which is exactly where I want to start, with purpose, vision, and mission. Does an organization with this expansion actually have one strategic identity holding it together? One thing immediately stood out to me while reading the annual report. Haley's doesn't begin with financial results, it begins with purpose. That alone tells us something about how this organization thinks. Their purpose is to inspire an inclusive world and a thriving planet. Rather than focusing only on profits, Haley's positions itself as an organization that creates economic, social, and environmental value simultaneously. This aligns strongly with modern stakeholder theory and sustainable competitive advantage. This vision follows the same spirit to be Sri Lanka's corporate inspiration at all times, and the mission grounds it in something more measurable: superior shareholder value by unleashing people's potential and achieving leadership both domestically and globally. Notice that shareholder value isn't the starting point here, it is positioned as the outcome of investing in people first. Underneath all of this sit 8 values: integrity, accountability, teamwork, humanity, customer value, will to win, social responsibility, and innovation. It's an unusually wide set of values for one culture to hold, but that width feels deliberate. It has to carry both competitiveness and social responsibility at the same time. So, how does a purpose statement actually turn into decisions across 203 companies? That's where strategic direction comes in. Strategic decision across 203 companies. That's where strategic direction comes in. Hayley organizes its strategy around five recurring pillars: portfolio optimization, customer centricity, nurturing inspired teams, inclusive business models, and ESG integration. And here's what I noticed: there's no pillar that simply says grow revenue. Growth is present, but it's always rooted through capital discipline, people, and sustainability. That's not an accident, that's a strategic choice. No company operates in a vacuum. Hayley is deeply influenced by the environment around it. During the financial year, Sri Lanka experienced improving macroeconomic conditions while global markets continued facing geopolitical uncertainty and supply chain disruptions. These environmental changes created both opportunities and threats. Now, to make sense of forces like these in structured way, strategists usually turn to a tool called PESTEL: political, economic, social, technological, environmental, and legal factors. Politically and legally, the big shift is regulatory. Sri Lanka now requires SLFRS, S1 and S2 sustainability disclosures alongside data protection and anti-corruption governance. Economically, the recovery is real, but currency and interest rate exposure remain live risk. Socially, customers are expecting more ethical conduct and sustainability, not just a lower price. Technologically, digitalization, AI, and automation are reshaping how operations run. And environmentally, energy transition and climate risk have moved from side projects to board level concerns. But Pastel alone tells us about the environment in general. To understand competitiveness specifically, I want to bring in Porter's five forces because rivalry looks completely different depending on which of Hayley's 14 sectors you are standing in. Rivalry is fierce in consumer retail, textile, logistics, and leisure. Supplier power shows up in raw material, energy, freight, and fertilizer. Buyer expectations keep rising on price, quality, speed, and sustainability all at once. And substitute and new entrants, mostly digital, low-cost challenges, are pressuring the traditional sector. Here's the insight that ties it together. For a single industry company, diversification can look like a lack of focus. For Harry's, it is the opposite. It is the hedge. When one sector's five forces turn hostile, the group isn't fully exposed. Let's turn from the outside in. A useful place to start internally is SWOT. Hayley's strengths are fairly clear portfolio market, leadership in several categories, a global footprint, deep supply chains, and strong governance. But the weaknesses are just as real: leverage margin pressure, exposure to raw material price swings, and honestly, the sheer complexity of coordinating 203 companies at once. That complexity is a genuine strategic risk, not just an operational inconvenience. On the opportunity side, electricity, vehicles, supermarkets, renewables, regional logistics, higher value added exports, and AI driven digitalization. There's real runway here. But the question I find more interesting than the SWOT list itself is this: is any of it actually hard to copy? That's what the WIN framework asks. Is a resource valuable, rare, inimitable, and non-substitutable? And when I look at Hayley's through the lens, no single asset passes the test alone. A factory can be replicated, a brand can be challenged, but reputation, decades of stakeholder relationship, leadership depth, manufacturing know-how, and ESG capability combined as one system, that's a genuinely difficult for a competitor to reconstruct. So the advantage here isn't any one resource, It's a combination, and that to me is the clearest strategic story in this whole report. So, what competitive strategy is actually driving all of this? Porter's original thinking says pick one path, cost leadership, differentiation, or focus. But reading the annual report, Hayley seems to be blending them deliberately. At the group level, it positions itself around diversified value creation with a strong best cost element but looks sector by sector, and it shifts. Differentiation shows up in value added carbon products, specialized gloves, sustainable fabric, and trusted brands. Cost discipline comes from scale and manufacturing efficiency, and customer centricity. Uh, and customer centricity, reliable product, service quality, and channel reach. Cost discipline comes from scale and manufacturing efficiency, and customer centricity, reliable product, service quality, and stakeholder trust sit underneath both. This is actually a small challenge to the textbook. Porter warned that firms stuck in the middle, trying to be cheap and differentiated at the same time, usually struggle. Hayley seems to manage it by applying different generic strategies in different sectors rather than blending everything into one approach everywhere. And there are a broad implication here for Sri Lankan businesses competing on how cost alone isn't enough anymore. Innovation, sustainability, and quality have become the real basis of competition. Let's talk about what Hayley's actually did in 2025-2026, because this is where strategy stops being a statement on a page, becomes a decision backed by money. 5 moves stand out to me. First, entry into electricity and hybrid mobility through Hayley's JQ partnership, a genuinely offensive move into a future growth category. Second, entry into large format supermarkets, building a value driven retail ecosystem almost from scratch. Third, and this is the one that caught my attention financially, a 9 billion rupees rights issue combined with 12.9 billion rupees in debentures, that are more than 20 billion rupees in fresh capital raised in a single year. Fourth, capacity expansions in purification, hand protection, agriculture, and tea exports, reinforcing existing strengths rather than only chasing new ones. And fifth, a digital transformation roadmap positioned as a cross-cutting enabler running through everything else rather than separate initiatives on its own. Put together, this doesn't read like a defensive year, it reads like a group raising capital and deploying it into genuine growth options while still investing in its core. Which brings us fitting to the question this whole show is named for, going beyond diversification to ask whether it is actually creating value or just adding complexity. The hardest question in corporate strategy is this: which business should a parent company actually be in, and how does the parent add value rather than simply collecting unrelated business under one name? For Hayley's, diversification spread risk across domestic and export-oriented sectors, including logistics, agriculture, retail, export, and energy. And there's a real strategic fit between many of them. Shared customer networks, shared supply chain relationships, shared logistic infrastructures. That's the difference between diversification that creates value and diversification that only adds complexity. Portfolio optimizations are meant to guide capital towards a higher growth, higher value, and leadership segment as a genuine group level capital allocation discipline. But the report is honest about the flip side too. Diversity is also a risk. It has to be actively managed through governance, execution discipline, and capital control, or the breadth becomes a liability instead of an advantage. So, the real corporate level challenge for Hayley isn't finding new sectors to enter, it's proving sector by sector that the parent is genuinely adding value, not just holding shares. No strategy executes itself, it's people who execute it. And the number here are worth citing with 325 million rupees invested in training last year, generating 579,104 training hours across the workforce. To put that in context, that's roughly 15 hours of training per employee on average across all 38,746 people, and the output isn't abstract. 785 new products emerged from the group in the same period, which tells me that training investment is training into real innovation capacity, not just a compliance box being ticked. The execution enablers listed in the reports are telling too: sector leadership, group management committee oversights, the digital roadmap, risk governance, ESG steering, and a phrase that stood out to me: ethical culture and customer centric values. That's the layer strategic textbook always may matters most. So, after all of this, did the strategy actually pay off financially? Revenue grew 19%, and 19% it's 585 billion rupees, but profit before tax grew only 4%, it's 38 billion rupees. That gap to me is the single most important financial signal in this entire report. Revenue up 19, profit up 4, that's margin compression. Rising cost, interest expense from the new debenture debt, or input price pressure are eating into growth before it reaches the bottom line. On the value side, though, 172 billion rupees in economic value was generated for stakeholders, and renewable energy now accounts for 75% of the group's energy use. Genuinely a strong performance on the ESG side. Which brings us to the way forward the report itself sets out: protect margins, manage the new debt from this year's capital raise, deepen digital capability, stay disciplined on strategic fit, and keep innovating. In other words, growth was bought this year. Whether it was bought at a sustainable price is really the question for next year's annual report. So, where does that leave us? Purpose driven at the top. Purpose driven at the So where does that leave us? Purpose driven at the top, 5 strategic pillars in the middle, and a genuinely disciplined, if debt funded set of moves underneath Hayley's is a useful case precisely because it's messy in the way real strategy always is. If there's one line to take away, it's the group's own. Hayley's is building resilience through discipline diversification. The real test now is whether that discipline holds as the debt comes due. That's been this episode of Beyond Diversification. I'm Amaya. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time.